Famcast Media, bitch.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, persons of all ages, welcome to the most exclusive group in the wrestling community. And now, your hosts, first, from Oahu, Puerto Rico, Macho Rodriguez, and his tag team partner from Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada, God's King, Tyler Taylor!
¿Cómo estamos, mi gente? Welcome to another edition of Must Love Wrestling. I am doing this solo today because, as I said on the car pod earlier this week, Tyler is on a cruise. So I'm going 1-0. Just myself here on the podcast, and I wanted to touch on a couple of things. First things first, we need to talk about CM Punk. He is absolutely killing it in his return to the WWE. I mean, everything he is doing, everything he has done from the moment of his surprise entrance at the Survivor Series has been perfect. Monday night, he had his segment cut short, so he gave us a 6-minute kind of cut and dry promo, gave us the I'm home, sent out his feelers, only to come back last night in his first time in almost 11 years on SmackDown and cut a scathing promo while involving some big names and potential matchups for the future. I'm very excited for this version of CM Punk because, as I've said a lot on this podcast, CM Punk craves structure. He's one of those guys where he just doesn't do well when he's allowed to be a wild horse. He needs to be reined in. And that's exactly what we're seeing. It looks like a happy, fulfilled CM Punk. They dropped a photo of him today. Someone did on their social media, and it showed CM Punk working out. It was at a local gym. And the dude looks massive. I mean, he does look bigger in WWE. He might have taken all of that energy and decided, I need to make myself better for the future. I mean, when I look at CM Punk right now, I look at the fact that AEW made a massive mistake letting this guy go. Right now, we got potential matchups all around. CM Punk LA Knight, CM Punk Randy Orton, CM Punk Kevin Owens, CM Punk Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Shinsuke Nakamura, Roman Reigns. We had all of these things presented to us in the matter of a week. I got to be honest with you. CM Punk might be the most over superstar since Stone Cold Steve Austin, since The Rock, since Yeselmania Bryan Danielson. He is the most polarizing figure in professional wrestling. You either love him or you hate him. But the one thing that can no longer be said about CM Punk was that he was the cancer in AEW. Because he isn't there. He hasn't been there since August. And since August, they've had to give the reins over to one of the boys in the back to start finding wrestlers because the owner of the company didn't have the guts to tell his own workers, hey, don't go bitching about us on social media. I got to be honest with you guys. It just looks really bad for Tony. I said this in a TikTok that I made a while back where if CM Punk goes to WWE and he's reined in structurally and he winds up being massive, what does this say about AEW as a whole? And now I compacted everything. I made it very clear. Tony Khan bought the rights to Ring of Honor. There were free agent wrestlers out there. And Tyler has battled me with this a lot, but he had the ability to sign Roxanne Perez. She's a future star on the main roster. He had the ability to long-term sign Dragon Lee. He's being slated as the next Rey Mysterio. He had disagreements with Cody Rhodes because Cody realized that just a solid wrestling company with no stories, there's no longevity in that. We need stories. We need reasoning to tune in to watch. Tony and the Bucks didn't want that. They wanted to be the alternative to WWE. They wanted to poke fun and have Jericho with his entertainment group. And it's not working. People aren't tuning in. Nobody cares about Rampage. Last night was a phenomenal match between Bryan Danielson and Daniel Garcia. How many people watched that match? 300,000 people? If that. I mean, tonight we have AEW Collision. I believe we have Bryan Danielson versus Andrade. Are a lot of people going to watch that? Collision is their A show. Whether you want to admit it or not, I firmly believe Collision is the A show in AEW. And there's nobody watching it. You watch Dynamite because we're creatures of habit. The same people will record Dynamite. The same people will tune in every Wednesday night. There's always going to be that level of person that is going to watch their show regardless. It's like me. I was a massive fan of the show Castle. Towards the middle of the seasons, when he had amnesia, I checked out a little bit, but yet I still watched the show through the end. I mean, lots of people do that. I believe that that's what fans are doing on Wednesday night. They watch Dynamite because it's become a part of their routine. When I watch AEW, what I'm missing is the storytelling aspect. I don't need the entertainment. I need the storytelling. I said this last week. Bryan Danielson and Eddie Kingston, their lead up to their match last week, that's exactly what AEW needs to do with everybody. Give us a reason to want to watch. Because if you're not going to give that, ¿por qué carajo vamos a ver eso? I don't want to just watch professional wrestling with no story. If I want to do that, that's what YouTube's for. As my brother over on Working the Marks has said, I've watched my 10,000 hours of professional wrestling. I need a reason to sit down and want to watch these two cats go at it. No, I'm not saying that AEW doesn't have good stories mixed in here or there, but they do a lot of bingo ball matchups. And what I mean by that is they just run the machine, open the cage, grab two bingo balls. Ooh, these two wrestlers are going to work tonight, even though there's literally no reason for them to work. Even independent shows in the early 2000s didn't do shit like that. And if they did, we would know for a week. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Paul London wrestled his farewell match against Samoa Joe at Ring of Honor. I was in the attendance for that. I was there in attendance. I don't know why I said it the other way. That was the same show that Jeff Hardy wrestled as Willow of the Wisp. I knew going into that match that Paul London was wrestling Samoa Joe. I knew for like 3 or 4 weeks that the Ring of Honor show that I was going to, it was Paul London's farewell match. Why doesn't AEW do that? Why can't they give you a reason to tune in and watch their product? What is so hard about that? What is so crazy that fans in that fickle fan base need to freak out and say, no, they're too much like WWE. Ring of Honor is under the AEW umbrella. They run and produce a pretty decent show themselves. Why can't AEW be as good as NXT or as Ring of Honor? It's just a mix and match of bullshit matches over and over. Sure, once in a while we'll get a gem, but I honestly don't see a reason to sit down and watch the product. And what really drives me nuts that I'm going to mark out here for a second is the way that Mark Briscoe is being utilized in AEW is driving me insane. They had the ability to put the Ring of Honor championship on him, to put the Ring of Honor television championship on him, to have that feel good moment, to make him the star of Ring of Honor. They chose not to do so. He has lost way more matches than he's won with that company. It is embarrassing. Mark Briscoe is one of the most talented superstars in that company, and he's essentially being used as enhancement talent. He was thrown into the Continental Classic to just help other guys get over. You can take a loss in this classic or whatever you're calling it and still win the tournament. But he's literally lost every single match he's been in. So I've touched on CM Punk. I've touched on the Continental Classic. And now I'm going to go in, guys, because I have a lot to say. Had to get down that café con leche. I want to read you a tweet that I saw today. And this is what really spurred me to get on here and to talk about this. MJF went from being one of the best heels in modern professional wrestling to one of the goofiest characters in the industry today. The fall of this man happened even before he could genuinely rise. Oh, man. I got to tell you, I agree with every single word in that tweet. MJF is one of the most laughable world champions I've ever seen. I have no interest in watching him. I have no interest in paying attention to his feud with Samoa Joe. If Joe wasn't involved, I would shut that shit off. MJF doesn't make me feel anything. I'm not angry. I'm not sad. I'm not bitter. I'm not resentful. There's nothing about him that makes me emote anything. I genuinely believe he might be one of the worst wrestlers in the world. And when I say wrestler, I mean like all around sports entertainer. I don't see anything that MJF does that excites me. Even Miz. And I wasn't a big Miz fan back in the day. I appreciate him more now, but it takes years to appreciate someone like The Miz. Even Miz made me angry, annoyed the shit out of me. I don't feel that towards MJF because what I'm watching is 50% Ric Flair, 50% Andrew Dice Clay. That's what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing a genuine brand new superstar that's going to go out there and try to bring you back to the heyday of Macho Man Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Stone Cold, or The Rock. Honestly, AEW has a guy like that on the roster right now that makes me feel all those things, and his name is Ricky Starks. MJF to me is a Wish version of Ricky Starks. I think Ricky is superior in everything, in ring work, his look, his promo. Max is just one of those guys that I have to find reasons to talk about him. And that is not what you want in professional wrestling. You want Baron Corbin heat. Or you want Eddie Guerrero love. We should feel about Max the way we feel about CM Punk. There should be half the people that love him or half the people that hate him. I don't feel anything towards that kid. The only thing he makes me do is laugh every time I watch him get into the ring with his wrestling boots and see that he's got like 5-inch lifts on the bottom. When I look at Maxwell Jacob Friedman, I think that this might be the worst AEW World Championship reign in the 5 years of the company's little history. I'm hoping that somehow, some way, Adam Page gets the world title back and he has a feud with Swerve Strickland, because those two guys should be the faces of the company. When I look at those two guys, I get all the feels in professional wrestling. Those two guys make me want to go back. I've watched their street fight, their Texas death match, or whatever you want to call it. I've watched that match like 10 times already. It was brilliant. I go back and watch Swerve versus Bryan Danielson or Adam Page versus John Moxley. I go back and watch Adam Page versus CM Punk. I got to be honest with you, man. Even AEW Wembley with Swerve, when he had to ad-lib with Sting in the ring because Darby hurt himself. That 5 to 6 minutes of them having to just go at it with each other while Christian was taking care of Darby on the outside. It's a little peek behind the curtain. Even that was more special or entertaining than anything Max has ever done. I have said this before, and I haven't been able to provide context for it. So I'm going to make the comment now. And if you guys want to hear more about it, then I'll do a whole show based on Kurt Angle. But I said, and I've said in the past, that Kurt Angle is the luckiest superstar in WWE history. He's the luckiest superstar in NWA TNA history. That's how I look at Maxwell Jacob Friedman. I look at him as a guy who's just lucky. He's been lucky to work the talent he's worked. And the talent he's worked has done such a great job of making him look like he's one of the best in the world, but he's not. I've gone back and watched some of his old indie stuff, and I see a guy who needed you to watch him. So he would do like acai moonsaults, and he would do like these planches to the outside, just things that he would never do now. When I watch MJF, I just think to myself, wow, I forgot that this guy was world champion. I think that's one of the most embarrassing things that I can say. That he's so laughably generic and ordinary that I forgot that he was the AEW world champion. The other day I was driving with a coworker. Sometimes we have helpers when we go on our routes, and we were talking professional wrestling, and he was asking me who the AEW world champion was. And I completely messed up and didn't realize it till the end of the day. I said, "Oh, Eddie Kingston. He's the world champ." Completely forgetting the fact that Eddie's the Ring of Honor world champ. I did that as a normal thing because Eddie is phenomenal. He's great. And no, I'm not just saying that because the flag's above my head or under me or behind me. I genuinely think Eddie Kingston is money. But guys, when I watch Max, what I see is that he's able to pop live audiences. He's able to get people in attendance to rock with him. Yeah. So he's very good at that. He can play the crowd really well. I just don't think there's any substance to him. And I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you that my Mount Rushmore is the Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling and you need to rock with me. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Brian, Brett, Brock, and Sting should be your favorite wrestlers because they're mine and I'm right and you're wrong. No, hell no. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to like different things in wrestling. Some of us will come together and like the same thing. Like there's a slew of Undertaker fans out there that all believe that Undertaker's the GOAT. That's their belief. I'm not here to convince them otherwise. Just like I'm not here to convince you that Sting is the GOAT. I'm not here to convince you that I already have Bryan Danielson as the greatest of all time, even though knowing that universally it's regarded that Shawn Michaels is the greatest of all time. So please stop jumping at me, trying to convince me or try to convince me to like Maxwell Jacob Friedman. Stop telling me to go back and watch matches because I've watched every Wednesday, I watched every Friday and every Saturday as long as they've had each show. Even when they swap and they need to move to a different night, I still watch. And I've never seen anything about Max that has tickled me. I think the wrestler I bash the most in social media is probably Road Dogg. I think he might be the most useless superstar in wrestling history. The one guy who literally became over just because of his entrance. And I still think Road Dogg is better than MJF. I don't think Max could hold a candle. He couldn't hold a candle to him. That's how I feel. But for a lesson out there, for professional wrestling fans, if you want to learn how to play a crowd without doing it a cheap way like Max does it, watch CM Punk's promo last night. That was a way to involve the crowd and not make it cheap, to not get cheap heat, to not get cheap pops, to not pull the late Mick Foley. I'm here in, Salem, Connecticut. Like, there's no need for that. There's no need. Like, I'm not going to go out there and be like, ooh, I'm here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to pop the crowd. Like, Punk didn't do none of that. And that was the time to be a cheap pop guy because they were performing in front of the military. It was a salute the troops. I genuinely believe that the show last night was really well produced. I loved that wrestling fans were angry that Punk wasn't involved enough on Monday Night Raw, so he was all over the show last night. They teased us every which way they could. The Bloodline, KO, anything like that. It was brilliant the way they did it. I also loved how he gave rub to LA Knight, who needs it at this point because he's been kind of growing stale. Now with Punk back, with Cody ramping up, hey man, LA Knight's kind of a thing of the past. I mean, there's already a lot of wrestling fans out there that are pushing for Kevin Owens versus Logan Paul. That, I believe, was supposed to be LA Knight's spot. I mean, it's unfortunate for LA because I really enjoyed his match with Roman. I'm one of the few people that enjoyed it. And I enjoyed his promo battles with Roman. I enjoyed him taking the head of the table at a contract signing. I thought that was really well done. But I can't help but agree with my hermano over there on Working the Marks. He's a mid-carder at best. But Punk gave him the rub last night, and I thought that was great. Randy gave him the rub last night. I thought that was awesome. So they clearly have more plans for him. It's clearly not over for LA Knight. Maybe he wins the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. I know he won one Battle Royal. Who knows? I mean, I think it would be great for him to go to Raw and work Gunther. Because I see him as an Intercontinental Champion. I see him as a United States Champion. Oops, sorry. Thought I heard something. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this random episode of WrestleTalk. This is WrestleTalk 19. Next week will be WrestleTalk 20. Can't believe I've done 20 of these and a couple of car pods as well. I really enjoy talking directly to you guys. And if you want to interact with me, follow some of the socials in the bottom. I mean, that X brand one, Twitter or whatever, I'm on there all the time. TikTok, I'm on there every single day, a couple of times a day. So come follow, like, and subscribe this page. I mean, we're doing really well because of you guys. I really enjoy the fact that every time I check the YouTube channel to see if any views are happening, if we're rising and ticking, that a lot more people have subscribed. Gotta say, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I won't say Merry Christmas yet because you'll definitely be seeing me before then. So, que Dios te bendiga a todos.